You're pregnant, standing in the TSA line, boarding pass in hand, and then you see it, that large body scanner at the end of the lane. For most people, it's just another annoying airport ritual. You step in, raise your arms, wait for the okay, and move on. But when you're carrying a baby, that same machine can suddenly feel a lot more intimidating. You immediately start wondering, is this safe? Does it use X-rays? Can it harm the baby? Should I just ask for a pat-down instead? It's completely normal to feel that way. Pregnancy turns everyday decisions into safety audits, from your morning coffee to deli meat. Add in old rumors about airport radiation, luggage scanners, or hospital X-rays, and it's easy to get overwhelmed. So, let's just look at the actual facts. We'll cover how modern TSA scanners work, how they compare to medical X-rays, where travel radiation really comes from, and exactly what to say if you prefer a physical pat-down. The goal is to help you get through security safely, keep your stress down, and start your trip with more confidence. To start, airport body scanners aren't medical X-ray machines. Part of the confusion is that we often lump all airport equipment into one big category called airport radiation, but they serve completely different purposes. The heavy-duty machine screening your carry-on luggage does use X-rays because it has to see through dense bags, electronics, and metal zippers. The traditional walk-through metal detector uses low-frequency magnetic fields, but the body scanner you step into uses millimeter waves, a form of non-ionizing radiofrequency energy. To put this into perspective, millimeter waves belong to the same broad, non-ionizing part of the electromagnetic spectrum as Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and cell signals, rather than the ionizing radiation used in medical X-rays. They're designed to detect objects and unusual contours beneath clothing, not to create an image of your internal organs. Because they're non-ionizing, they don't carry enough energy to alter cells, damage DNA, or affect your developing baby. Medical X-rays, on the other hand, use ionizing radiation, which is why doctors weigh the benefits and risks carefully, especially during pregnancy. The TSA body scanner is not in the same category as medical X-ray imaging. If you remember old news stories about airport radiation controversies, you might be thinking of backscatter scanners. Back in the late 2000s, those specific machines did use a very tiny dose of ionizing X-rays. Even though the dosage was extremely low, public concern and privacy issues led the TSA to phase them out completely years ago. The machine you see today is a different technology called millimeter wave advanced imaging technology. Because these modern waves look for shapes on your body, maternity clothing can sometimes trigger an alarm. Extra folds in maternity clothing, a supportive belly band, a thick waistband, or even an item left in your pocket can sometimes look unusual to the screening software. The officer screening you isn't looking at a detailed image of your body. Instead, the software screens for privacy by displaying a generic, gender-neutral outline and marks any area that needs a second look. If the screen highlights your stomach or hip area, it doesn't mean the machine detected an internal issue with the pregnancy. It simply means the software noticed a thick layer of fabric or a shape change and may require a targeted pat-down of that specific spot. If the scanner isn't the real issue, where does radiation actually come from when you travel? It comes from the flight itself, specifically from altitude. Once your plane climbs to a cruising altitude of 30,000 to 40,000 feet, the atmosphere gets significantly thinner. Down on the ground, the atmosphere shields us from much of the naturally occurring cosmic radiation from space. Up there, that natural atmospheric shield is weaker, so you absorb a tiny amount of cosmic radiation during the flight. The data helps put this into perspective. The CDC describes the radiation exposure from ordinary air travel as very small. For example, a flight from New York to Los Angeles exposes you to about 0.035 millisieverts of cosmic radiation. A typical chest X-ray is around 0.1 millisieverts, so that cross-country flight is roughly 1/3 of that amount. And according to ACOG, occasional air travel is generally safe during a healthy, uncomplicated pregnancy. The people who actually track cosmic radiation closely are commercial flight crews and frequent international business flyers who spend hundreds of hours in the air each year, especially on high-altitude polar routes where the magnetic shield is thinner. But for most occasional travelers with a healthy pregnancy, clinicians are more likely to focus on prolonged sitting, hydration, circulation, and any pregnancy-specific complications than on either the scanner or the small radiation exposure from the flight. Once you understand how the scanner works, it also helps to pay attention to the more practical concerns that can come with a longer flight. You might spend the entire security line worrying about the scanner, only to board the plane, sit almost motionless in a tight middle seat for 4 hours, and arrive feeling stiff, uncomfortable, and more swollen than usual. The smart moves are much more practical. Choose an aisle seat so you don't feel guilty about getting up frequently for bathroom access. Stay hydrated by filling an empty water bottle after security, as cabin air is notoriously dry. Keep your vitamins and any essential medications in your personal item under the seat in front of you, not in your checked luggage where you can't access them. If your OB/GYN recommends compression socks, put them on at home before boarding, not after your lower legs are already swollen. Once you're in the air, do simple ankle circles, flex your feet every 30 minutes, and stand up to walk the aisle whenever the seatbelt sign is off. Even if the science is clear, what if you still don't feel comfortable stepping into that machine? That's completely normal too. The science may be reassuring, but you still have the right to choose the screening option you're most comfortable with. You don't have to force yourself through it just to make the security line move faster. In standard TSA screening, you may opt out of advanced imaging technology and receive a pat-down instead. When you reach the front of the line where the officer directs people into the scanner, just keep your request short and direct. "I'm pregnant, and I'd prefer a pat-down." You don't need to apologize, you don't need a doctor's note, and you don't need to give a lengthy medical history. Once you make the request, the TSA will instruct you to step aside. The pat-down will be performed by an officer of the same sex. The officer will explain the process and let you know exactly what they're doing, including how sensitive areas will be checked. If the public security lane feels too chaotic or overwhelming, you can ask for a private screening area. If you choose this option, a second officer will be there as a witness to make sure everything goes smoothly. You can also ask whether your travel companion, like your partner or a family member, can stay with you during the private screening. It's also worth noting that if you're carrying medically necessary liquids or ice packs for medication, those can be allowed in larger amounts than the standard 311 limit. You simply need to declare them to the officers before the screening begins so they can check them separately, which usually just takes a few extra moments. Sure, a physical pat-down can feel a little awkward, especially when your carry-on is sitting several feet away on the conveyor belt. But it's a standard screening option used every day. Before the screening begins, tell the officer if any area is painful, medically sensitive, or needs to be approached carefully. The officer should explain the process before starting, and you can ask for a supervisor if the screening does not match what was explained. The only real trade-off you need to manage is time. The body scanner is usually very quick, while a pat-down may require you to wait for an available same-sex officer, listen to an explanation of the procedure, and complete the screening itself. At busy airports like Atlanta, LAX, or JFK, that extra wait can add up. If you already know you want to opt out, allow about 15 to 20 extra minutes at the airport. That gives you more breathing room to choose the screening option you prefer without adding the stress of rushing to your gate. At the security checkpoint, it's all about whatever makes you feel safe and in control of your body. Go through the scanner if you're comfortable with the data, or ask for the pat-down if that gives you peace of mind. You aren't being a difficult passenger either way, you're just making the right call for your peace of mind and your baby. Pregnancy brings enough daily worries, and the airport shouldn't add to them. Knowing how these machines work simply gives you the confidence to handle security on your own terms. Which option would you choose for your next flight? Let me know in the comments. If this helped clear up some airport anxiety, give it a like, share it with an expecting mom, and subscribe for more practical travel tips.